meeting. Posted right around the corner as you come in the door there is the actual Open Meeting Act. If you would, we'd ask that you stand with us for a moment of silence and as well the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Beth, if you will do roll call.
Granquist.
Here.
Langy.
Here.
Merrill.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Moaning.
Here.
Faust.
Here.
Pyle.
Here.
Okay. First and foremost, approval of the consent agenda, if you would, please.
So moved, Your Honor. Second.
Motion with a second to approve the consent agenda as presented you. Please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
And as well, looking for a motion to approve the full agenda.
So moved. Second.
A motion with a second to approve the full agenda again. Please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
Okay. We'll move right on to a special presentation tonight. This is a presentation of life-saving awards to be presented this evening. And I'm going to turn to Scott to start us off, if you will, please.
Mayor and Council, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Occasionally an event occurs where it's worth taking pause for just a little bit and giving recognition where it needs to be done. And doing it in this very special place in front of all of you seemed befitting of the actions of these people this evening. So what I'm going to do, with your indulgence, is simply move around to the other side of the podium and face the audience and have those individuals come forward. So I appreciate your indulgence in that, and we'll get started. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take just a few minutes this evening and pay special recognition to some individuals that chose to make a difference. We all get up every morning and we have choices to make, and how we interact or how we deal with those choices kind of sets in motion the outcome, sometimes unforeseen, sometimes impossible to predict. But when you make that decision and you cross over that line and you choose to involve yourself in making the outcome of somebody else's day end differently than it would have been otherwise, it's a pretty cool thing. And tonight we're gonna honor some people that chose to make a difference, and I'm proud to be able to share that with you this evening. So I need to first have some individuals come forward. Mr. Ronald Baker, are you here this evening? Ronald, please come forward. Sergeant Chad Ryman, Norfolk Police Division. Joel Wiedemann. Joel, am I pronouncing that right? Is it Wiedemann? Okay. And Officer Josh Dynison. Josh, would you please come forward? Additionally, I would like the members of the B shift, the fire division that we're working that evening. Captain Bettendorf and your crew, would you please come forward? July 8th was a significant day, ladies and gentlemen. We had two calls within a very short period of time where the outcome of two fine Norfolk citizens' lives were going to change had there not been an intervention done by somebody else. And today we're going to recognize both of those. The first one involved a call for a choking patient. Very critical in that the time was not on our side, and the intervention chosen by Officer Dynison upon arrival to dislodge the foreign object that was allowing this person to choke and unable to breathe in any capacity. Their time on this earth was short. And because he chose to intervene, because he chose to perform the abdominal thrust necessary to dislodge that object, a fine citizen of Norfolk is here today that wouldn't have been. And so we're going to recognize Officer Dynison tonight for his efforts and his willingness to make a difference, perhaps slightly out of the normal scope of his duties, but certainly in keeping with the oath that he swore to protect and to serve. And so from one public safety agency to another, we certainly want to thank Officer Dynison for his efforts on that day. Additionally, we received a call that day from dispatch that we had an unresponsive male that was in serious distress. Our B shift members responded to that scene, and upon arrival were made aware that CPR was in progress, where two individuals at that premise were engaging and attempting to do CPR and initiated that sequence to allow this person a chance to to make that chain of survival that's so critical for us to have a viable patient upon arrival. They intervened. They chose to get involved, and they chose to make a difference, and they initiated CPR with this patient. Upon arrival, Sergeant Ryman took over that CPR and continued that in the course of that call until our B-Shift folks arrived and ultimately continued on with the transport and care of that patient to the hospital. The outcome of both of these events were wonderful, happy endings because both patients are alive and well today, and both of them, by all witness accounts, were here because of the early intervention of the civilians and the police officers that chose to get involved that day. And so today we're going to recognize them. First, we're going to give some plaques out. The plaques are inscribed this way. On behalf of the Norfolk Fire Division, presented to Joel Wiedemann, the Life-Saving Award for your extraordinary act in the performance of life-saving CPR on July 8, 2015, given by Norfolk Fire and Rescue this day, August 17, 2015. Assistant Chief Raggi, if you'd present that to Joel. Likewise, we have the same wording, and I won't embellish you all with the repeating of all that, but this plaque given for extraordinary life-saving award given to Officer Josh Dynison. The same award given to Mr. Ronald Baker, Life-Saving Award. And for your efforts, Sergeant Ryman, for CPR on that day, July 8th, given on behalf of Norfolk Fire and Rescue, the Life-Saving Award for your efforts that day.
Scott, why don't we just have them all come in front here and so the audience can see as, come on forward, gentlemen. You can hide this council, nobody's going to be offended.
Additionally, gentlemen, on behalf of a grateful community, on behalf of the mayor and the city council, they've also awarded you some outstanding citizenship awards. Given to Officer Chad Ryman, Josh Dynison, Colin Baker, and Joel Wiedemann. And one last thing I want to do, gentlemen, is this whole event really illustrates the idea of partnership and teamwork and collaboration and all those fancy words that we can use to describe where multiple people come together and achieve a positive outcome. I see no better example of that than what you all have done here tonight. And so with us tonight is one of our victims that survived that day, and he's willing to come forward today and be a part of the ceremony. And I've asked him to present to each of you a medallion. Sir, if you'd come forward. These medallions are entitled My Brother's Keeper, and it really illustrates the bond that you all have with one another from this day forward. You participated in an event that saved the outcome and saved a man's life. This gentleman is here today because of your actions. It's a pretty powerful statement. It's a pretty emotional thing, and it's worth our gratitude to you for your efforts that day. So I'd like you, if you would, starting with Mr. Bettendorf, present those medallions to them. Captain Steve Bettendorf, firefighter paramedic Bob McElroy, firefighter paramedic Rock Soderberg, firefighter paramedic Casey Caskey, Roland Baker, Sergeant Chad Ryman, Officer Josh Dynison, and Mr. Joel Wiedemann. Let's give these fine folks a round of applause, please. One last thing. Bet, would you run over there and give that fine gentleman one of these? He needs to be linked to what happened here today. If you would present that to that fine gentleman before he leaves us. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for the program tonight. Thank you very much for your indulgence. Once again, congratulations, gentlemen, on great work. We appreciate you very much.
Okay. Thanks very much, Scott.
You're fine right there. I'm Police Chief Bill Meisner, and traditionally, anytime one of our officers is involved in a situation where their actions actually saves the life of someone, and it is documented and been demonstrated that that was indeed their actions that contributed to the saving of that life, we recognize them with what we call a life-saving award. It basically is a ribbon that they will wear on their uniform that signifies that they were involved in such an action. And since we were doing this this evening, we thought we would just go ahead and present them with these as well. I would like to point out that law enforcement over the last couple of years, you've heard a lot about police officers being involved in some things that are probably viewed as pretty negative. I would like to point out that those incidents are relatively few and far between, even though it doesn't seem like it when you listen to the news media. What I would tell you is what these two young men were involved in, that happens every day all across this country. Police officers saving people's lives because of the actions that they take. And I'm just very pleased that Sergeant Ryman and Officer Dynasson were in a position that they could respond quickly and could take an action that made a huge difference in those individuals' lives. And so I would like to present them now with their ribbon for life-saving. Josh, there's yours, wear that with pride. And I would like to point out that on Sergeant Ryman's ribbon, it has the number 3. This is the 3rd life-saving incident that Sergeant Ryman has been involved in. So congratulations, Chad. Well done.
Chief Meisner, thank you as well. Norfolk, how fortunate we are to have what we have protecting us both in fire and police. So thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to be a part of celebrating. And with that, we'll go on to an agenda item here, public hearing. At the request of Michael R. and Connie L. Cooper for a zone change from R1 single-family residential to RR rural residential at 903 Forest Drive. I will open this hearing. And Trent, are you hiding over there?
No, Mayor. Dr. Cooper is here, so I'll have him go
Okay,
first.
sorry. Dr. Cooper, thank you very much.
Thank you for this opportunity. Can't write and talk at the same time.
We kind of gave you a tough act to follow too, didn't we?
Absolutely, my
Yes.
goodness. I want to thank you for the opportunity. Basically, our situation is we live at the residence of 905 Forest Drive. We recently bought the 2 lots, which would be 903 and 901 Forest Drive. And our desire is to, down the road, build a secondary building that is architecturally compatible to the neighborhood, especially to our house. But the only really logistical place to do that would be on that lot of 903 and 905. It would be nice location, could build across lot lines, but the problem is they're zoned differently. And so because of that, that's why we're requesting a zone change.
Okay. Any questions for him as he stands before you, council? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything that you need to add to that at all, Trent?
I don't believe,
Some-
Mayor and Council, if you're familiar with that up there, he is the very end of Forest Drive. I mean, if you drive down Forest Drive, you'll go right into his house, if he leaves his garage door open. So his situation there is 2 other lots there. I don't believe there's going to be an addition to Forest Drive. At least there's nothing in future planning that I am aware of for that area. So I did not have an issue with it.
Okay, appreciate your input on that. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to this? As it is a public hearing. Seeing none then, a planning commission report, Beth?
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing at the request of Michael R. and Connie Cooper to change the zoning from R1 Single Family to RR Rural Residential at 903 Forest Drive. The Planning Commission recommends a zone change on a 7-0 vote.
All right, and with that, I will close this public hearing and ask for a motion for consideration of ordinance number 5358, which would be approving a zone change from R1 to RR at 903 Forest Drive.
Your Honor, I'd offer ordinance number 5358 for consideration.
Second?
We have a motion with a second. Any further discussion? Short title, Beth?
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and providing for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
Hearing that, I would ask for your vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5358 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, I would move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5358 on second reading as there is no opposition to it. It seems like the right thing.
Second.
All right, we have a motion with a second to suspend the rules and pass on second and third reading. If no further discussion, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5358 carries on second and third.
Next is a, excuse me, a public hearing at the request of Zachary Kopp for a zone change from Office District, OD, to C1 Local Business at 1302 Burgess Avenue. I will open this public hearing and, sure. Thanks. I'd let you sign in for us and state your name.
Dr. Zachary Cup, and I requested the zone change for 1300 Burgess from Office District to C1. We are planning to build a new dental office on this piece of property, and it is more favorable setbacks for us for the layout that we want to use for the building.
Okay, again, council, any questions at all as he stands before us? Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Again, it is a public hearing. Is there anyone that has any question or wants to speak to this? Nothing to add to that, Trent? We're good?
Mayor and
Makes
council,
sense.
this is where Dr. Good's office used to be. So
Right.
if you remember up on the hill, there is some challenges with some topography there, which I think they're very well aware of. There's some sewer issues that they got to work through. There's some utility easements along between the C3 zoned and what he's proposing on the C1. So we got C1 to the north, which and C1 actually fits us well, and it allows him to have a bigger dental office there. So I did not see any issues with it at all.
Okay, thanks, Trent. Any other discussion at all, council? If not, Planning Commission report, Pat?
The Norfolk Planning Commission held a public hearing at the request of Zachary Cup to change the zoning from OD Office District to C1 Local Business at 1302 Burgess Avenue. The Planning Commission recommends the approval of the zone change on a 7-0 vote.
All right, and with that, I will close this hearing and look for consideration of ordinance number 5359, approving the zone change from OD to C1 at 1302 Burgess Avenue.
Your Honor, I'd move consideration of ordinance 5359 on first reading.
Second?
We have a motion with a second for consideration of ordinance number 5359. Any discussion? Hearing none. Short title, Beth.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Madison County, Nebraska, amending the zoning district map of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska, providing when this ordinance shall be in full force and effect, and providing for publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
And if you would please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5359 carries on first reading.
Your Honor, again, I would move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance 5359 on second and third reading.
A motion with a second to suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 5359 on second and third. If no discussion, again, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5359 carries on second and third readings.
And next is a public hearing to consider an application to Nebraska Department of Economic Development for a CDBG grant, number CR007, for water main reconstruction under Madison Avenue between 1st and 7th Streets, single-family housing rental rehabilitation, commercial rehabilitation, facade improvement in downtown Norfolk, and as well housing management and general administration. I will open the hearing and look for, you're going to come forward and speak to us, Dean?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Tina Engelbart with the Northeast Nebraska Economic Development District. And as it's stated in your packet, this is the public hearing for the application. This is a third and final phase of funding for this round of the CR program. And the $150,000 that the city's requesting is broken down by $60,000 for the water main reconstruction, $31,500 for single-family rental rehabilitation for 2 units, $6,000 for housing management related to that, $37,500 for commercial rehabilitation, which is the downtown facade improvement program, and $50,000 for the general administration of the project. The city will provide a one-to-one match of $60,000 to the water main sewer project, and then the property owners participating in the single-family rental rehabilitation and the downtown facade improvement program will provide a one-to-one match for that program as well. Total estimated project cost is $279,000. And I just want to point out that this is a project the city's participated in since 2005, when it was first offered by the Department of Economic Development. And to date, it's been highly successful with about $1.9 million in CDBG funding, and total project costs in the area were about $3.4 million. So the city's received quite a good chunk of funding for this project, and there's been a lot of great improvements that have come out of it.
I would agree.
Yeah, so I would answer any questions anybody might have.
Any questions for Tina at all, Council? Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks again. With that, I will close this hearing. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to it before I do so? Okay, seeing none, no further discussion here. Then I will close this hearing and look for consideration of Resolution 2015-26, submitting an application to the Nebraska Department of Economic Development for CDBG Grant 15-CR007.
Your Honor, I move consideration of resolution number 2015-26.
Second?
We have a motion with a second. I think we're ready to vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, resolution 2015-26 is adopted.
All right. Thanks again, Tina. Appreciate that. And next, we have consideration of ordinance number 5356, granting a franchise to PBN LLC to operate and to maintain a cable television system in Norfolk. This ordinance, 5356, if you remember, passed on first reading at the August 3rd, 2015 City Council meeting.
Good evening again, Madam Mayor, members of the council, city staff.
Yeah, I better, I'm going to interrupt you and ask if I can have someone bring forward this ordinance number
Your
5356,
Honor, I'd move
please.
consideration of ordinance 5356 on second reading.
All right, we have a motion with a second, and now carry on. It gives you time. No, that's my fault.
As the mayor has pointed out, and as you'll all recall, I was here 2 weeks ago, and the council was kind enough to extend a unanimous approval to this ordinance on first reading. Again, this evening, Mr. Clint Arnold and Mr. Will Fogel are here on behalf of PBN. We are in agreement with all of the terms and conditions of this ordinance. We are here to request your approval. On second reading, if any questions arise, Mr. Arnold or I will try to respond. And if the council would so be inclined, we would respectfully request that this evening you might move this ordinance on to third reading, as PBN does have prospective customers to which it would like to extend service as soon as possible. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to respond, or Mr. Arnold will.
I'm going to take advantage while we have you or gentlemen here. I will let you know that I've had 2 phone calls. What does that mean for residential service, and can and when can they look forward to being able to have option?
I'm going to let Mr. Arnold respond to that. I think it might be more credible.
Well, I can tell you it's going to be more credible than what I might have to say, so.
But as I said last week, if we're in the area, they're available tomorrow.
Okay.
So it's defining whether they're in our area or we're in their area or not, would be the question.
Okay, so they can call you.
They can call us, yes.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
I can share that. Any other questions that you may have, Council?
Be nice if Clint could clarify a few things for us.
Okay.
The question that Councilman,
Yeah.
the question, I think he's talking to me about this one, Clint. What Councilman Clausen's asking about is, what does this do with our contract with Cable One? This is a very similar contract to the contract with Cable One. Neither the contract that's before you for your consideration with PBN or the existing Cable One contract is exclusive. They're both non-exclusive. They both can allow for the competition. There are provisions in both contracts that say that if somebody else comes along and wants to be a third member that's providing those services, they can. It talks about they need to be brought under similar terms and conditions so that the council can't favor one cable company to another. So the franchise fee, the 5% franchise fee that's present is present for PBN the same way that it's in the contract for Cable One. The one thing that's different though is that since Cable One came to the community when, 1980, early 1980s, it was possible under the cable law that was in effect at that point in time that they had to build out to the entirety of the city, okay? And that was something that could be, what is in the contract, is still in the contract. Since that time, and Mr. Schudel can explain this better than I can, but since that time there's been changes in the Cable Act. Part of those changes have been brought about by litigation and questioning and whatever, but PBN is different. Anybody else that comes along after PBN that would offer cable services is different. They're a competitive entrant into the market. They're not the incumbent, and they don't have to, that's the one thing that can be different. You don't have the ability, this council does not have the ability to require PBN to build out to the entirety of the city in the same way that the council back in the early 1980s had the ability to do that with Cable One. And so, absent that, I think that Mr. Schudel would probably agree that the ordinance that's before you, the agreement with PBN, is pretty much identical, and in fact was fashioned after the existing Cable One ordinance.
That's true. And in addition to that, we have provisions added for public, educational, and governmental access, and providing for a studio to be maintained at PBN's cost for public usage. So those are all part of this ordinance, as they are part of the Cable One ordinance.
Okay. Any other questions at all, Council? Okay. Hearing none then. Short title, Beth?
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska granting a franchise to PBN LLC, a Nebraska limited liability company referred to herein as grantee or PBN, to operate and maintain a cable television system in the City of Norfolk, setting forth conditions accompanying the granting of the franchise, providing for city regulation and use of the cable television system, providing for the payment of franchise fees, providing penalty for the violation of the ordinance provisions, providing for a repealer, and providing for the publication of this ordinance in pamphlet form.
All right, and with that, we have a motion with a second to approve on second reading. If you would please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5356 carries on second reading.
Your Honor, I would move that we suspend the rules and pass ordinance 5356 on third reading as through neither of these two hearings have we heard any opposition.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion with a second to approve ordinance number 5356 on third reading. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative, ordinance 5356 carries on second or third reading.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. You bet. Good luck. Finally is consideration of approval of change order number 1 with Rutchins Construction for the Norfolk Southwest Sanitary Sewer Interceptor Project, resulting in a net decrease of $62,902.11. Could I have a motion for consideration of?
I'll make the motion, Your Honor.
Second.
Okay. Mark, we have a motion with a second. You want to explain?
This is the final change order for the Southwest Sanitary Sewer Interceptor Phase 1 project. This is the project that started at 4th and Jackson and went west along Monroe and then eventually terminated there on the west side of Highway 81 by Tazuka Drive. It was a $1.38 million was the original contract price that you approved. This change order, as mentioned, was a net decrease of $62,902.11. This change order basically provides for balancing of quantities. The main decreases were, I'll just kind of have about 4 or 5 items that really attributed the decrease. There was some trench stabilization that we didn't need to do for part of the project, or for all the projects, so that was a significant cost saver. The other main cost savers was the amount of concrete and asphalt streets that we didn't have to replace. One of those big chunks was along 5th Street there. We were anticipating having to get into a lot of that, but due to the selection of using clay pipe over PVC when we originally bid this, that kept their trench narrower, which also I think had residual effects elsewhere. So, so those, the trench stabilization, the concrete, and the asphalt, that was a major decrease. The 2 increases that you'll note is 2 service lines that we bored across Monroe instead of trenching across, and essentially those were even swaps for what it would have cost to replace the concrete versus boring. And then the other increase that you'll see is increase for, we ran conduit along this project for our city fiber, and in the borings, there's a steel casing that goes around it. So it's a 36-inch steel casing with a 24-inch pipe, which probably has an outside diameter somewhere in between. We were going to do a 2-inch conduit through there, but it was so tight that we ran a redundant 1.5-inch just in case the 2-inch didn't make it through a couple of those borings. So those are the increases that you see, which netted a net decrease of $62,000. So everything else is minor balancing of quantities.
Okay.
Answer any questions you have.
I doubt that there's many questions when we see a decrease, Mark. Like, okay, thanks.
All right.
All right. And if there is no other discussion, council, I would ask that you vote.
All council members voting in the affirmative.
All right. I see nothing further on the agenda. We are adjourned. You're becoming a fixture here, aren't you?
That was him.
All good.
I'm telling you, that happened all the time.
We deserve one of those.